Welcome to the You Were Designed for Greatness podcast. Each week we will bring you inspiring tips, stories, and ideas to help you be all that you can be, discovering your greatness. Featuring Donna. Donna is a transformational life and health coach, a highly sought-after public speaker, and the founder of Vibrant Living. She has helped hundreds find a better life, free of stress and living the greatness they were truly designed for. And now, your host, Donna.
Well, I am excited today to welcome you to You Were Designed for Greatness podcast, and I have a special guest, Michelle, and I am not going to try to say your last name. Why don't you tell everybody how to say it?
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to be here as well, and it's Michelle Rabideau, and I always say it, pronounce it like Scooby-Doo, and you'll never forget it.
Yes, there you go. I can say that, Rabideau.
There we go.
All right, and we met, I believe, at one of the Women in Connection groups, luncheons. But
yes.
I think that's where we met, and it was lovely. I remember coming up to your table and introducing myself and us getting to know each other, and then from there I invited you to be a guest. To share some of, women usually pause when I say this, but we all have wisdom. We all have things we've gone through and stories we've got. So I want to be able to give our listeners a chance to hear about your story and things. So help us get to know you. Tell us about you.
All right. Well, I couldn't agree more. I think we all benefit from learning from each other and hearing the various stories. So I'm delighted to be a part of this. I always love to tell people that I'm a California girl. I'm a California native through and through. And you might think, wow, what's so big about that? And it's important to me because I have this insatiable love for sunshine and the ocean. And so much so that I think it really defines me as a person. I choose to live my life looking through sunshine-colored glasses. And that might sound a little hokey to you or to the listeners, but I do. I just choose to live my life very positively, and I have to be grateful for my California upbringing for that. But I haven't lived there my whole life. In fact, I've lived really in the Midwest the majority of my life. Like many, my parents were divorced when I was younger. I moved with my mom and my stepdad. I went to high school in the Midwest. I went to the University of Illinois. So if there's any Fighting Illini out there, woot woot. During those years, a couple things stand out. I was always that girl who was involved with everything, whether it was, raising money for a nonprofit organization or organizing a can drive for the homeless. I was your girl. I really loved helping others and making a difference. And then on the flip side, I was also always told, Michelle, you're good at science. You should be a doctor. And so I said, okay, that sounds great. Planned that when I chose going to University of Illinois was in pre-med until my senior year when I started applying to med school, and I thought, I don't want to do this. This is not for me. I still loved the idea of helping others, but the idea of practicing medicine just was not getting me excited. And so I had to listen to my gut. I had to listen to that voice inside of me that just said, this isn't the direction to go. And I'm glad I did, because after college, I took some business classes and I started to go down that road when life threw me a curveball, as it does many of us. My mom was diagnosed with terminal cancer at the age of 51. And I was 24 at the time. My stepdad was the person who had the insurance. So he basically said, Michelle, I need you to quit your job and take care of your mom, which I did for 4 months. And those 4 months included a lot of just incredible conversations with my mom. I learned more about her in those 4 months than the entire lifetime before. And it also gave me great pause to reflect on what I wanted my life to look like. And I'm very grateful for that experience, as odd as that might sound. And I'm really grateful for any experience that I've had, whether it's good, bad, ugly. It's what makes us stronger and gives us growth to be better than the day before. So when I think about when people kind of say, tell me about yourself, it's like, I'm that California girl who's got those sunshine roots. I've been thrown some curveballs and I've chosen to rise out of it and really design my life around living it to the fullest and around joy.
So what's the thing that you say you're very thankful for that experience? What'd you take away from that that's impacted you still today, all these years later?
I think it was really about how I was going to choose to approach life. Going through the experience with my mom and hearing her talk about, I wish I would have, and fill in the blank. Mm-hmm. And I remember telling my boyfriend, who is now my husband at the time, I never want those words to come out of my mouth, ever. And I remember feeling, this deep sadness hearing my mom say that, because knowing that she was going to die from this, that there wasn't really time or a chance, an opportunity for her to do those things. So it was really then that maybe I didn't realize it back then, but I really started to have this kind of personal mission to live my life every day filled with gratitude. So to be thankful every day for the big, the small things. And if you're having one of those days where you're like, I can't be grateful for anything, I challenge you, you can. Even if it's just getting through the day and being in a bed. I've sometimes been grateful for that. And really, truly living each day to the fullest. And specifically, I've chosen around 3 things. I want every day to be filled with learning. I want every day to be filled with loving. And I want every day to be filled with laughter. Humor gets me through a lot. I think when people ask those questions like, what gets you through a stressful situation? I'm like, humor. Absolutely.
Laughter, learning, and what else did you say?
Loving.
Just I
love what you do, and then do what you love. That's my favorite quote. And I live it every day.
I was thinking as you're talking in the mission statement that you have for your life in those 3 words, what would you say the difference is between living your life and just existing?
Wow, that's a deep question. Well, I choose to live my life. And I do so with full intent. we can go about every day existing, and I'm sure it would be fine. But when you go about life just existing, I don't think you have, or maybe you don't know what your true purpose is. Mm. And I think when you live life, you do it with intent and with purpose, and you get more out of it. And so you want to wake up the next day and do it all over again.
Yeah. So is part of that, in your perspective, what I'm gleaning from you, is part of living your life is actually just choosing to? It's like I have choice. I can choose to live, or I could just let life happen to me, and then I feel like I have no choice. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, it does. I really think it's about making a choice. And I know there might be some listeners out there who say, whoa, wait a minute. I didn't choose to not have a job or a challenge. Well, guess what? You're absolutely right. I didn't choose to have my mom die at such a young age, but I can choose how to respond to that.
Correct.
And through any hardship, there's always light. And it may be really, really dim and hard to see, but it is there. And, that's just one curveball that my life has been thrown. Like so many others, you might have a curveball every day and think to yourself, really? How am I going to get through this? Yeah. But I choose to.
Yes. Yep, I totally agree with you. For those of you listening, you probably heard my story as well. And what happened to me wasn't a choice either, but it is a choice of how we are going to choose to live. And I think that's the biggest difference in whether I'm living my life. I may not do everything on my bucket list, but I'm going to choose to try and to keep working at it and to keep going for it and to make a difference. Someone was sharing at a meeting I was at the story of the starfishes. And if you haven't heard it, there is a young man walking down the beach, and there is starfish all over the beach, and he's picking them up and throwing them in the ocean. And an elderly man said, "What are you doing? You're wasting your time. You will never be able to make a difference doing that. Look at, there's starfish as far as you can see." And he picks up another one and he throws it in the ocean, and he said, "I made a difference to that one." And he threw another one, and I made a difference to that one. And we sometimes get overwhelmed with such a big picture that we forget that we can make a difference in the moment, that I can smile at you and make a difference, that I can choose joy, that I can choose to love, I can choose to laugh at the flat tire again, or whatever it may be. I can choose that, or I can choose the negative emotions that could happen, anger and fear, and how am I going to pay for another tire, and all of that kind of stuff. But learning that we can choose in the moment to make a difference. So to me,
amen.
That was
I love it.
That was so good. So you told me in our previous chat about your a favorite book of yours. Could you share that?
Yes, I've got a little bit of an old school book for my favorite book. So the name of the book is The Gift from the Sea, and it's by Anne Morrow Lindbergh of the Lindbergh family, published in 1955. And my mom's best friend from high school gave it to me after my mother's funeral. And candidly, when she gave it to me and she wrote a little note in it, I looked at it and said, oh, that's nice. It's from 1955. Like, really? What am I going to glean from this? And, but I read it and I was wowed. I was wowed at the relevancy, even back then in 1992. The self reflections that the author had about being a woman and what it means to have a voice and to find that voice and figure out what your imprint in life is going to look like. And so the theme is all around parts of the sea, whether it's the seashell or the waves or the sand on the beach. But I've read it at least a dozen times. And every time I read it, my trick with it, it is a quick read, but my trick with it is to read it fairly swiftly. And when I do that, every time something speaks to me differently. Mm-hmm. And I love that about that book.
Yes.
So it's old school, but I think it's pretty darn cool, and I highly recommend it.
Awesome. That sounds great. So in closing, this has been really a great conversation. I don't really want to close it, but
thank you.
For time, any last bits of encouragement or wisdom to share with the women that are listening to this podcast? They were designed for greatness, and most likely they don't know it, or they could know it more. And so any thoughts that you would like to share in closing?
Yeah, everybody is designed for greatness. And my advice is to listen to your inner voice. Mm-hmm. Your voice is one that is wise. It's strong. It knows you best. So that's the voice that you should listen to and figure out what's that journey look like, and trust your intuitive spirit. It's your spirit. And with that, you can't go wrong.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Being in
thank you
here today. And I want to encourage people to read that book and take the tips that we've learned today to heart. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I want to encourage you to get that book, The Gift from the Sea. And I also want to encourage you, one of the things that Michelle had said was to love what you do and do what you love, so that you can have a life filled with laughter, learning, and loving. And if today, while you're listening to this podcast, you're not loving what you're doing and doing what you're loving, and you're feeling a bit frazzled, I'd like to invite you to get a free book on my website, From Frazzled to Freedom. It is there for you. It is a free resource, and it will transform your life. So I encourage you, go on over to my website at iVibrantLiving.com and get your free book today. And as always, this is Donna saying, until next time, live and love vibrantly.
Thank you for joining us on this powerful episode of the You Were Designed for Greatness podcast. Please share this with others who might enjoy it. For more info on Donna Tashjian or to contact her, visit iVibrantLiving.com.